Welcome to our table talk with the women today, myself, Locardia. Listen, I always get excited every time when I come at this table. Guess what? Because we always bring you amazing, powerful women that comes to empower you, that comes to motivate you, that comes to encourage you to do the things that you're not able to do. So I'm really, really excited today because we are going to talk about the finance side of things. So today here I have my friend Amina.
Hello.
Um, Welcome to the Table Talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. It's
Thank
been a
you.
long time coming.
It has been really, yes. So I'm really excited and thank you for coming. I know, taking your time to come and sit down with us and, just to learn a lot of things that you know. So we don't take it for granted. So
No
thank you on
worries
behalf
at
of
all.
all the women today and myself.
You're
So
welcome.
thank you. I'm excited. Because, finances is like one of the biggest well, it is one of their biggest topic or issue. Money sometimes causes divorce, causes a lot of things, but I don't want to go ahead of myself. I know you.
Yes.
Tell me about yourself.
So my name is Amina Odukoya. I've got over a decade's experience in the financial services industry as a customer success manager, managing a range of clients. I've done retail banking, I've done small business, and currently I work in the corporate space. Outside of my 9 to 5 role, as you know, I do a lot of things within the DEI community, just educating people about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just in their professional lives, but in their personal lives as well. And I do a lot of open panel events and Zoom seminars on the importance of financial literacy, specifically within the Black community, because there's such a huge racial gap, and I am on a mission to make sure that people are financially literate, and hopefully we can help to close that gap as the years go by for ourselves and for our generations to come.
That's brilliant. And I know we did a Zoom session with you, with our Women Today ladies. That was one of the most popular Zoom session we had.
That's good
So
to
many
know.
questions we had, and we're like, okay, we want to sit down with you and ask you, a few questions or discuss a few sessions or questions that came out from the Zoom session we did. And in terms of finances, what is the biggest, challenge that you think or that within the Black community people struggle with in terms of their finances?
I think generally it's just the information in terms of access to financial resources that are out there that people are unaware about, understanding how to budget so that you can save, so that you can start investing. A lot of that information people don't know. People gatekeep information, which I don't even understand why. But that's one of the reasons why I said, I need to start doing all of these webinars about educating people about financial literacy in general, from budgeting to saving to investing to buying your first property. So the information itself is lacking. I don't know if it's because people don't just seek the information, but we need to do better as a community, I think.
Yeah, we do. And I remember when we did the Zoom session, you mentioned about the credit scoring, which I didn't know about when I came to this country. And I know from the discussion we've been having with most people, most women really, they'll come from Africa, come to the UK, and they get excited. I'm going to get a credit on this. I'm going to borrow this. I'm going to borrow that, and I'm going to borrow this. Whether it's a phone, whether it's car, whether it's anything at all, and they don't really understand, and then they don't pay in time, and they don't really understand about the credit scoring. And even up to now, most people don't even know about credit scoring. Talk to me about that. What exactly is credit scoring, and what are the things that women need to be aware, or people need to be aware of the credit scoring, the advantages or the disadvantages of it?
I think for starters, as we all know, Africa is a very cash-driven society. So when you come from a very cash-driven society to a country where a lot of the system is based on credit and credit scoring, it can be very difficult to find your footing. And the credit scoring system is basically just a way for financial organizations to see if you're credit worthy. Are you the kind of person that they'll want to borrow money to? Can they lend to you? So the way it works is there's 3 different financial credit scoring systems. I think there's Equifax, there's Experian, and there's one other one I can't remember now. And those 3 credit scoring bodies have different credit scores. So one's like over 1,000, one's like over 700. And basically what they do is they look at your credit history and your credit report in terms of how many phone contracts do you have, how many loans do you have a mortgage, what percentage of your overall credit are you using, for example. And based on what they can see on your credit file, they then decide are we going to lend you money or are we not going to lend you money?
Right.
So I tell people that are migrating to the UK, coming to the UK for the first time, that you need to find ways to build your credit, and you need to ensure that your credit is always clean. Credit is not necessarily a bad thing if you know how to utilize it properly. So getting things, for example, like a credit building credit card. If you're a first timer here, you can always go on different websites to check that. And it's always good, essentially, not to use more than 30% of the credit that you have available to you. So for example, if you have a credit card with £1,000 on there, try to keep your spending within £300 every month. If you can afford to pay it back in full, which is the ideal situation, then pay it back in full every month. If you cannot pay back in full, that's fine. Just ensure that you're keeping up with your payments on a monthly basis, because it shows to lenders that you're able to keep up with your payments. So things like that are things that you can do. Getting yourself on the electoral roll, for example, is one way that you can put yourself on there. Just generally ensuring that you're keeping up with your payments, you're not making use of that 30%. And if you do that, you know, try to pay back in full if you can.
I like what you say, because for somebody that can get like a credit card of 1,000, and before you know it, they get excited, I need to spend the 1,000 in complete, but you're saying, may try use 300. And then at least the bank can also see that you're actually capable of, you know, using your money. That's very interesting. So in terms of, because we got so many people that they borrow, their credit is not good, but they want to get a mortgage. You find that there's so many women that we know right now, they're renting properties. So they're basically giving somebody else money instead of, like, you know, getting your own mortgage. What advice can you give to somebody who's like, okay, I'm in bad credit, but I want to work my way up so that I can be able to get my own mortgage, but their credit is actually bad?
Yeah, I think for starters, we need to strip it down to basics before we get into that. So I always say to people to try and utilize what's called the 50-30-20 system, which is just a rule, the 50-30-20 system, and I'll go into detail. And that's just, I would say, the basic when it comes to budgeting 101. So what that means is, if you earn a wage every month, ideally 50% of what you earn should go into your needs. So the things that you, like your mortgage, your phone bill, your water bill, things that you know that you cannot live without, that 50% of your wage ideally should go towards that. 30% should go to the things that you want, so saving for a holiday, gifting yourself, gifting family, and 20% ideally should go to your savings. Now, depending on your personal circumstances, you can actually adjust that percentage. So if I was a person that was still living at home with my parents, I'm not going to have that many expenses. So ideally, I could say maybe 30% will then go to the things that I need to do, and maybe increase my savings percentage to maybe the 50% and keep the 20% to like wants and needs. So strip it down. And I say to people, keep a track of your budget, keep a track of what you spend on. So whatever you're spending on, start at the first of the month and just keep a track. And if you see that, you know, you're spending a bit more on holidays and you still got a bit more debt, maybe you need to strip that back. Now, if you've got a lot of debt, people always say, oh, I don't know how I'm going to, you know, pay off my debt and then be able to save. If you stick to that 30-20 rule, 50-30-20 rule, it's very easy, and that way you can then start to pay off. If, like I said, you can pay off the minimum, or you can pay off as much as you can. When it comes to paying off debt, it's always great to start with the highest interest first, or you can start with the lowest interest first. There's two different ways. So you can do the triangle where you start by paying up the higher interest loans or credit cards first, or you can swap it the other way around, so you can pay the lower ones first, and then, you know, you can tick that off your list. But as long as you have a strategy to pay that off, you're then able to save money. Another way that you can kind of do that is by consolidating your debt as well. But the trick to consolidating your debt is you need to make sure that, let's assume you have 3 credit cards, you're owing, say, 15,000 across the 3 of them, and they have 20% interest or 19% interest on those. Potentially, if you look to the bank to get a loan where they're giving you a loan for 15,000, but for a lower interest, say 5%, you can then consolidate that loan, pay off the credit cards, but cut off those credit cards and don't spend anymore. And that gives you a longer time to pay, but then potentially could reduce your payments as well that you're paying monthly, and all of that extra could go into you saving, you know, for something. So those are ways where what you can strip it down and say, listen, I'm going to pay off my debt, and then I can start saving. If you're lucky enough to not have any debt, because I know there's people in that situation where they're just coming to the country and they have a whole load of cash, and like you asked, you're looking to save for your first house, there's so many resources that are available. You know, we've got the lifetime ISA, for example, where you could pay 4,000 into that account every year, and the government will give you £1,000. So essentially how it works is whatever you save capped at 4,000, the government will give you 25% of what you save back. You could put your money in like bonds where you get a fixed interest from the government. And then when you're ready to buy that property, then you go, you know, you have that money in cash ready to go.
So can a person have 2 ISA accounts or just
no, you can only open 1 ISA account every tax year.
Right, okay.
The tax year in the UK runs from the 6th of April every year to the 5th of April every year.
Right, okay.
So for this year, we're still in the 2022-2023 tax year until the 6th of April.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
So let's say you've not opened an ISA, you have time to open one now.
Right, okay.
And then on the 6th of April, 2023, you can open one for the 2023-2024 tax year.
Okay, okay.
I'm going to strip it back again.
Right, that's okay. Go ahead.
Because speaking on ISAs as well, there's different kinds of ISAs available.
Right,
so we've got 4 types of ISAs. There's the cash ISA, there's the lifetime ISA, there's the innovative finance ISA, and there's the stocks and shares ISA.
Wow.
So those are the 4.
I actually thought there's just one.
No, there's 4.
Okay.
So the ISA.
That's why, sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. I could go into this like forever.
Like this, you see, we don't know this information, and I think it's important that we know, because like I didn't know there were 4 ISAs, and I think that's why we information is so important.
It is important.
You know, like it's always, you know, it's always important to get that wisdom as well, because when you don't know, you know, you just lack in a lot of things. So yeah, go ahead about the 4 ISAs.
So I'll start with, because people are going to go now, what's an ISA?
Okay.
An ISA is basically an individual savings allowance, and it's a scheme that's been created by the UK government to enable people not to pay tax on the interest on the savings that they get.
Right, okay.
So your standard savings account, if you earn more than £100 in interest on your regular savings account, you're entitled to pay tax on that money.
Do you know, it's so unfair. It's so unfair that, like, okay, I'm deciding, let me save my money, and the money that I'm actually saving, the government is taking.
Yeah, that you can get taxed on it. So the ISA was created so that you're allowed to save money and you don't pay tax on the interest.
But they still give you the maximum to put in that account.
Yes, I was going to say. So there is a maximum cap every year. So for this tax year, so which is the 2022-2023 tax year, the maximum that you can save across your ISAs is 20,000, which is quite a lot of money. So if you had £20,000 cash, potentially you could pay into the 4 different types of ISAs and spread that across, or just stick that you want to pay into a cash ISA only. Remember, the lifetime ISA is the one that has the 4,000 cap. So if you had 20,000, you 4,000 in the lifetime ISA, and then spread the 16,000 across. So the cash ISA is just, you know, a regular savings account, just like your normal bank accounts. The only thing is, again, you don't get taxed on the interest.
Okay.
And then if you go to the stocks and shares ISA, it's just basically you're investing in stocks and shares as opposed to investing in cash. That one is particularly good if you're a long-term investor. So when we say long-term, think of minimum of 5 years, maximum 30 years. And essentially you just buy stocks and shares. Obviously, the money that you put in there is likely to fall or rise depending on what's going on in the world. So if you look back at the pandemic, for example, people will be screaming, oh my God, my portfolio is down. But if you're a long-term investor, you don't need to worry about that, because over time, you're going to ride that wave and you're going to make money on your investments. Wow. Innovative finance ISA is like peer-to-peer lending, where you lend money to companies where they then lend that money to somebody else, and then you kind of make money back on the interest that those people pay. Again, there's a risk of people that you've lent that money to not paying back, but if you're a long-term investor, again, with investments, you will likely ride the wave. And then the lifetime ISA is obviously the one that's specifically for people looking to buy their first house or saving towards their retirement. So if you've already bought your first house, you can still open one for your future. And then we've got the kid ISAs, and with the kids one, you get the junior ISA or the junior stocks and shares ISA. And for the junior ISAs, the cap is £9,000 every year.
That's good, because you've been talking about the junior ISAs. I want to go that route. As Black parents, we have children.
Yes.
Here in the UK, and I didn't know that every child actually get like child benefits until I was getting child benefit for my kids, and I used to use that money to send back home. Like, oh
my God, Locardia! It's for your kids.
I have to be honest, take the money. I'm like, okay, this one is my parents. You know, that's what most of like
black tax is a real thing.
We send money home. Like as soon as we get our money, we send money home, and so we don't really think about our kids, and we don't even think about the future of our children, and not really. And I had this conversation with my son, and then after he was 18, he said, "Mom, I need my money," and I said to him, "Money
from where?"
He's like, because he's got his friends, and his friends are like, okay, my mom, I've got this car, my parents were saving, and then I didn't actually realize that my son knew that actually he knew that he was getting money, and then which most of our us as parents, we don't think that the kids know.
Yeah.
And I think I want us to talk about how important is it for Black parents, African parents, to really think about the future of our kids, and to save for them, and just to think of their future. Yeah. And I know obviously our generation, my generation, we always take money back, ours goes back, but then also to start thinking about that future, so that when my daughter and my son, I'm giving him that stepping stone to start with. And I wanted to talk about how important it, because I think it's really important that I'm coming from the finance side of things, because our kids will struggle. You find that as soon as they finish university or college, their friends have got somewhere to start. And before we know it, we've given our kids a disadvantage.
Yep.
Yeah, talk about that, how important it is.
So when we talk specifically about the racial wealth gap, these are one of the contributing factors. Wow. Now, there's no problem in you taking care of your parents and sending money back home. Yeah, yeah. But if you've had that choice or made that choice to have kids, you also have to think of their future. I mean, I always say to myself, by the grace of God, I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm relying on my kids to send money back to me. Yeah. And honestly, no offense, my parents have done a wonderful job raising me, as I'm sure with a lot of other parents. We can send money back home, but if we're going to start breaking that and creating situations where our children are starting off better than we were, we need to start thinking of investing in their future. We need to. Exactly. And the junior ISA, honestly, is a fantastic way for you to do that. Yeah. What I specifically love about the junior ISA as opposed to traditional savings account is whatever money you put in that account for that child, you can't touch it. You can't take it out. It literally is in that account until that child turns 18 and immediately becomes the child's money. Now, this is where financial literacy is important, because what you don't want is when your child turns 18, there's XYZ amount in there and they go and blow that money. So as much as you're investing in the child's future, you need to start teaching your children about the basics of saving and investing. So I've got a 7-year-old and he already understands the basics of the 50-30-20 rule, because I say to him, great to have money, but then he'll say, if I say to him, oh, Adnan, what's the 50-30-20 rule? He'll say to you, oh, 50% goes to my bills, 30% goes to this, and 20% goes to that. And those are the kind of conversations I think it's important for us to start having with our children from a young age. If you haven't opened a junior ISA for your child, again, the cap every year is £9,000. You can either do a cash junior ISA or stocks and shares ISA. If you haven't started, it's never too late to start, as long as your child is not 18 yet.
So where can people go to open these ISAs? So somebody could be like watching and they don't know. Where can
a lot of the banks, I don't want to name any brands because this is not sponsored, but a lot of your high street traditional banks will do junior ISAs for the cash ones. If you're looking for investment ISAs, and again, I don't want to recommend, but that's the one that I use just because over the long term you will make more money as opposed to putting money in a cash account. So just for example, if you're investing £1,000 every year in a cash ISA over 18 years, at the end of the 18 years you get £18,000 back, right? If you're doing a stocks and shares ISA where the average earning over a period is like maybe 5% a year, potentially your child could be getting 30,000-40,000 after 18 years. So if you're looking for cash ISAs, a lot of traditional banks do it. If you're looking for stocks and shares ISAs, there is a range of providers. One of the popular ones is Vanguard Investors. We've got Moneybox. We've got Hargreaves Lansdowne. We've got Wealthify. There's a range of providers out there providing stocks and shares ISAs. And when you're looking to invest in stocks and shares, I always say to people, keep it safe by investing in what's called an ETF, which is exchange traded funding. And what an ETF is basically they've created a fund for you and invested in a range of companies. So when you buy one stock or share from an ETF, you're essentially invested in many companies. So I'll give you an example. A very popular one is what's called the Vanguard S&P 500. And essentially that ETF has invested in the top 500 companies in the world. So when you buy one stock from an S&P 500, you're essentially investing in 500 companies.
I want that one. Yeah, we'll talk about
But there's so many other funds out there. But, you know, for a first-time investor, you're looking for a safe investment where you're going to get returns on your investment over a year. S&P 500 is, you know, quite a popular fund for first-time and new-time investors. And if you think of, you know, investing that money over 18 years, you're essentially putting your children in a better footing than we were, because they could use that money, for example, to pay for their university fees. If they don't want to go to uni, they want to start a business, they can use that. They could potentially use that money to buy their first property. Imagine buying your first property at 19, as opposed to most of us who bought it in our 20s and 30s, you know. So for me, when I think of things like that, I just think I want my children to look back and say, thank you, Mom, thank you, Dad, for giving me this opportunity. Because when I look back at my life, I remember when I started in the bank 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago now, I met people who said to me, oh, my parents gave me a deposit to buy my first house. And I was like, oh, must be nice.
I know.
Must be very nice.
Yeah, well,
so
my
for
parents
me,
were expecting money from me, and
So for me, I'm like, those are the things that are literally building that racial wealth gap. The financial literacy bit, the fact that we're not doing enough as a community to put our children at par with the counterparts outside of the Black community. And I say to people, it doesn't even have to be a massive amount. If it's £10 a month you're able to afford, put that there. And by the grace of God, as you start to earn more, you increase that in there. If it's £50, you can do it. If it's think of it, it would be money that they wouldn't have if you don't put that money in there.
I was going to ask you to actually emphasize on that, because I like what you say, that you've got a 7-year-old that you have actually trained as a mother. And I know within most of our parents, Black African women and men, we've got so many excuses. You know, well, I'm on benefit, so it's very hard. Well, I'm coming from a shift. Well, my money is not enough. My finances are not enough. Or, well, you're in a good position to do that, but I cannot. So I want you to look in that camera. Talk to that mother, that father who's listening. How did you start with your son? Was it difficult? Was it challenging? And how important is it that you start from a very young age?
I always say to people, don't be afraid of money. Money conversation is very important. And the earlier that you start those conversations with your kids, the better. Now, you don't have to use big grammar or big English. With my child, I started when he was about 5, and you can just use age-appropriate language. So now he's 7, he's got one of those bank accounts with his own card. And I say to him, when you get money, what do you want to do with this? How do you want to split it? And then give him that autonomy, or give her that autonomy from a young age. I think it's very important for us to carry on these conversations, because again, it's one of the ways that we can close that racial wealth gap. But it also gives our kids, you know, a better footing from when we were, and puts them at par with the counterparts outside of the Black community. So please, if you're a mom, a dad, auntie, uncle, grandmother, nephew, niece, put your children or your cousins or your siblings in a better financial future by investing for them, by saving for them. It could be a traditional bank account if you want to go that route. It could be a junior ISA. It could be an investment one. Just start, because a little goes a long way. That's all I have to say. A little goes a long way.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We were having a discussion with some of the ladies. I think one of the biggest issue that came out was we want to live a life that we cannot afford. And, you know, especially now with the cost of living.
Crisis.
With the gas bills and the mortgage interest going up every time, and like literally every day. I was saying not every month now, it's every day.
Everything's going up by the second,
You know, the fuel going up, and so it's actually a time in a season where it's actually difficult. It's actually going to be difficult. It is already difficult for some people already. And it's actually going to get more difficult with obviously the war going around and all these things. And what can we say? How can we advise people? Because there's always people that are genuinely struggling. They don't even know where to start. And I know you touched a little bit about that. But we want to talk about the bills in the house. What can you do? Whether it's your car, whether you use petrol, diesel, it doesn't matter, like your journeys or the practical things that we can advise people in terms of, like, you know, every little that you can save goes a long way.
I think it's important to not keep up with the Joneses, because at the end of the day, you are living in your own reality, whoever you are, wherever you are. And you need to start thinking of practical ways. If you have to strip back now, then you have to strip back. So I'll use myself an example. Okay. We used to be a 2-car household pre-COVID. And then COVID hit and one car was literally sat on the drive for months. One day it wouldn't even start. And then we started to realize, why are we paying for 2 cars when realistically we actually can get by with one? We don't need 2 cars right now. So we got rid of 1 car. Guess what? We didn't have to pay tax, MOT, insurance, all of that. So it's little things like that that you need to start thinking of. Where can you strip back realistically where you're not stripping back to put yourself in suffering, because there's no suffering here. It's upwards and onwards. But realistically, what are the things that you can do within your family to kind of give you that little bit of money extra? I say to people, if you're the kind of person that eats out a lot, honestly, it's much cheaper if you cook your own food. You can meal prep. And those are the little things that people need to look at. Don't keep up with the Joneses. Stick with your own reality. Strip back now, because potentially you're putting yourself in a better financial situation for the future.
Exactly. Like, you know, you don't have to stay in a house, you know, put your gas all the time and, you know, travel unnecessary journeys that you don't need to. Like, these are the practical things that sometimes people don't really understand, and we always complain about money. And thank you.
You're very
Honestly,
welcome.
It's been really, really good. Do you have one burning thing that you want to talk about before we close?
Burning thing, save, invest, build the financial future that you want for yourself and for your family. Honestly, it's very important to us as a community. Educate people within your family about the importance of financial literacy as well. We need to keep passing that information from generation to generation. Don't gatekeep, because at the end of the day, when we're all winning together, it's a much enjoyable experience.
Yes. If one of us wins, we all win. And honestly, you're doing an amazing work in the community.
Thank you. So are you.
Continue to do that. Especially, I was talking to you earlier, we need more people that really talk about, you know, finances. I mean, we talk about anything and everything. We know we can empower people all day long, but we know the very first thing, the only thing, a major thing that really people struggle with is finances. And finances are causing a lot of divorces. Finances are causing a lot of families to break down. You know, finances are causing a lot of things. You know, when you have money, sometimes, you know, some people get happy, some people not, but it depends on how you see it as well. But so thank you for doing what you're doing in the community. Welcome. And again, thank you for the funding we got at Women Today from your work. So thank you. We appreciate it.
We need to do it bigger this year so you get more money.
More money. We need more money. But thank you. Thank you again for joining us at this table talk.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys. Those who have ears have had listen. Sometimes when you have information, don't just sit on the information. Do something about it. We've been talking about a lot of things today, and I know you have been empowered to change and not just to sit. One thing that she said was, don't do what the Jones do. You know, stay in your own lane. You know your finances, you know your struggles, you know, live life according to what you can afford. And again, you know, don't do things that you can actually not do. Again, it's important that we think about our children. We think about the future of our children. Let's do something. Let's save money for our kids so that they do not have to struggle. Like, you know, we always talk about generational curses, but here let's talk about generational blessings, where our kids don't have to struggle, where your son or your daughter finishes up and look, their university fees already paid, or you're buying them a 2 or 3 bedroom house, you know, mortgage free home. We want things like that. And again, we cannot just change things just by talking. We have to do something about it. We're talking about saving every little that you can have. You know, we got 4 different ISAs. It's never too late to start doing something, whether it can be £1 a day. Before you know it, by the end of the month, you've got 30 pounds that you have saved. So it doesn't really matter whether you have, you know, you get thousands at the end of the month or you get hundreds. You start where you are and your life will be changed and transformed. It's very important. Finances are destroying marriages, finances are destroying families, and we have to plan it right. I hope you have been empowered. I hope you have been motivated. And again, if you need more information, more help and more support on your finances, my friend here, she's available. And again, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at amina.a, or you can send me an email at info@aminaodukoya.com. I'll get Locardia to maybe put it in the comments or in the thing somewhere.
So thank you so much for joining us here at Women Today Table Talk. From ourselves to you, goodbye.
Thank you.